So as you guys are aware, the coping and seething that is happening right now for Black Myth Wukong is something of legend. It's almost as legendary as the actual story of the journey to the West. And yet here we are experiencing it in real time. We have an article here from Inverse, and I honestly came across this article by accident. I happened to be Googling some information about Black Myth Wukong, and when I looked at the news tab, I saw this particular article sticking out to me like a sore thumb. The headline just absolutely screams coping and seething from Shannon Liao, and it says Black Myth Wukong isn't even good, but that won't stop Chinese nationalists and anti-woke sales.
What the hell is even that?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the coping and seething is at its maximum right now, and I fucking love it. I cannot get enough of it. This is the most amazing thing that I've been able to witness since Hogwarts Legacy, and I will continue to check for more coping and seething because, trust me, there's plenty out there. But this particular article just screams envy, right? It screams envy. It screams overall anger at the fact of someone realizing that they're not in the majority. It screams of someone who is ideologically, psychopathically driven to the point where they think that their entire worldview is the worldview, and then they woke up one day to find out that that is nowhere near the fucking case. So let's get into this article, guys, from Inverse. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. So let's see exactly how much Shannon, and it's always usually a female, it's ridiculous. Let's see how much Shannon is going to be melting down in this particular article. It says, in Black Myth Wukong, after I crushed a nasty snake boss, the game's heroic monkey protagonist triumphantly marched through the temple gates only to find another boss. I warily trounced this bear boss too, but what I really wanted was new characters to chat with or a nice spot to lay my head. Perhaps in the game's next chapter? No shot. I walked forward only to enter another area full of aggressive beasts and visually appearing swaths of barren wasteland. Now, what they are essentially describing is every fucking game that is in this category. If you are in a category that is even remotely Souls-like, then you are going to not only get completely trounced by aggressive beasts, as you like to say it, or the fact that you're going to be fighting boss after boss after boss. That's the entire point of this fucking game. How can you even sit there and try to pretend like this is specific to Black Myth Wukong when games like this are readily available and have all been following the same formula? And you know why they follow that formula? And that's because real gamers thoroughly enjoy that formula. That's because actual real gamers, not these fake ass gamers that try to pretend to be gamers when they're actually just activists who are journalists. Real actual gamers love that formula. A lot of people love the formula. This is why it became very popular and why so many different companies, studios, whatever, are trying to copy said formula from Software. Then it says that after 10 years of game development, Chinese developer Game Science Black Myth Wukong has a viral reception. 10-cent minority investment, an unbelievable success on Steam. But while sinking a dozen hours into Black Myth, I couldn't help but think how gamers over the years would have complained if Elden Ring or Diablo 4 contained such a sparse amount of content. How is it sparse? How is this a sparse, how is this a sparse amount of content? Because I've been playing this game for almost 20 hours. I'm in chapter 3 right now, and 20 hours of solid fucking gameplay and content is better than a lot of the garbage you're getting these days that are twice as much gameplay, twice as much hours, but less the amount of actual content. Right? Like Black Myth Wukong has so much content in it that I can easily enjoy this game for 50 hours plus. I guarantee you. If I'm already at 20 hours in chapter 3 and there's 5 chapters and it gets harder as time goes on and there's secret bosses, side bosses and whatnot that I haven't actually done yet, and I guarantee you there is so much more to be done, that to call this something that is I don't know, like not lacking of content, I guess let's just say, I think that's a fucking coping and seething metric. Wukong's world feels empty and devoid. That's a lie. That is a lie. Wukong's world feeling empty and devoid. When you look around, not only do you see a bunch of characters that are very interesting, but there are NPCs that you can actually converse with. Most of them are useful NPCs. They might not have much side story to them, but they're useful NPCs that do different kind of unlocks for you, different upgrades for you and whatnot, and they do have their own stories. So to say it's devoid and empty of life it's fucking insane. But again, it says, if that sounds familiar, I'm echoing what some players said about Starfield last year, another 60-hour RPG saga. Well, So here's the problem with Starfield, right? So Black Myth Wukong has zones, and they're much smaller zones, so you can pack a lot more into those smaller zones, right? Starfield is all about planetary exploration. They're fucking planets. So you know how hard it is to fill a planet and make it seem interesting in every aspect? It's very difficult, right? There's going to be a lot of dead planets. There's going to be a lot of planets that seem like there's not a lot of life to it. And that's okay when it comes to a planetary game. But from a gameplay perspective, perhaps that would be a little bit boring, but ultimately it's a little more understandable, right? When it comes to Black Myth Wukong, they're much smaller zones, so you could do a lot more detail with them. You could do a lot more NPCs, you could do a lot more enemies, you could do a lot more with it, and it's a lot smaller, so it makes it feel more alive. Not just graphically, but just from the NPCs and whatnot, it feels more alive. It says, judged by its own merit, cultural and political context aside, Black Myth isn't a particularly inventive game. No, it's not. That's true. Even if the boss fights are very fun, the environments feel stale and small when you realize most doors stayed glued shut and most walls aren't climbable. Now, one of my biggest complaints about Black Myth Wukong, aside from the initial performance, which I've been heavily critical about, one of my biggest complaints is there's so many invisible walls in this game, right? There are so many different things that I can actually climb, and then when you look and check out other areas that look like you should be able to climb it, you can't because there's an invisible wall. And overall, when you're playing a game like Wukong, it's actually very annoying to experience that. I don't like that. I think that definitely takes away from what looks to be an open area, a grand area that's filled with exploration, and there's no map, so you can definitely explore and backtrack and try to remember and memorize the map. You know, that definitely helps to create this feeling of, I don't want to say emptiness because there isn't no emptiness, but just overall blockades, right? This feeling that you're being blocked by some invisible fucking wall is actually very, very bad for the overall, like the mindset that you try to get in when you play this kind of game. And then it says that when I ran through the outer limits of each biome, I found a deserted terrain with nothing to do. In between big bosses, the game doesn't offer you any chance to reflect, rest, or enjoy the scenery. That's not true. Instead, it merely pushes you to the next stage. The assets for the lands repeat. It's almost as if you're trudging through a maze. I haven't come across any side content in the 12 hours I've explored the game. And for non-Chinese speakers, a common refrain is that the narrative and rush translations are confusing. I recommend turning on Chinese dialogue for more flavor and ambience, but even then, it sounds like one guy acting out all the voices. Now, here's the most hilarious part about this entire article. If Black Myth Wukong isn't as good as reviews say, it's currently got an 81% on Metacritic, while Steam users have given it a 10 out of 10, then what's behind the title's astronomical success? Months before the game's launch, it has already drummed up an online furor that would eventually translate into Steam sales, and some self-proclaimed gamergaters even suspect it's part of Chinese nationalism and part hype driven by the side of the internet that hates diversity and inclusion. This unholy combination may have inadvertently revealed a new path to success for edgy, but ultimately mediocre video games. I think you are extremely disingenuous if you're trying to call Black Myth Wukong a mediocre video game, right? You are sitting on this fucking morally superior pedestal that you're trying to pretend like everybody else below you is not anywhere up to your standard. But the fucking fact of the matter is, people are not only buying this game, but they're actually playing the game. And this is the biggest difference between the shit that Inverse shills for, right? Or websites like Inverse shill for, and games that gamers are actually enjoying and claiming to be one of the next bastions of good gaming, right? So when we buy our games, when we support our games, we actually play the games, right? When you guys buy the games, you don't play the games. A lot of you guys will go on Twitter and you'll try to say, oh, you know, I love this game. It's amazing. You'll give a like. You'll give a retweet. You'll do all this stuff, easy activism on Twitter. But when it comes to giving your money, when it comes to actually giving your time and playing the game, nobody's to be found. Look at what's happening with Dustborn. Dustborn, when the developers Red Thread Games put out a statement on Twitter talking about how they're receiving hate or whatever, they had over 2,500 likes on that tweet. Why didn't any of those people play the game? This is a game that at most had 83 players at its peak. So where, out of those 2,500 likes, where were the rest of the players? Why didn't you guys who liked that post and wanted to support the developer by liking that post, why didn't you buy the game? Why didn't you play the game? This is the same coping and seething metric that we see here on screen, where they're trying to make it seem like the game's mediocre without the anti-woke stuff. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of people were looking forward to Black Myth Wukong. A lot of people, including myself. When that first gameplay trailer released, I thought it was a fantastic looking game. And of course, I'm instantly in on the Souls kind of gameplay, 100%. You guys know this already. I was heavily looking forward to it, and a lot of people were looking forward to it. And it was one of the #1 wishlisted games on Steam, even before the anti-woke stuff started happening. So you can try to say that, oh, the only reason this game is successful is because of anti-woke and Chinese nationalism, but both of them don't mean a fucking thing. Because if anti-woke gamers want to go support a game, then why aren't the woke gamers supporting their woke games? Right? You're going to try to sit there and cope and seethe and say, well, the only reason why this game is successful is because anti-woke people bought it. And? So all the woke people who are asking for woke video games and woke entertainment, why the fuck are you not buying your games in mass to counter what we are supposedly doing? It's because you rather use your words, you rather like and retweet. You don't have the money to actually support what you say you want to support, so you expect these developers to fund it for you, right? You expect all of these studios to make these woke-ass video games that are going to actually fail, and you expect them to do it on their dime so that you don't actually have to support them monetarily, but at the very least, you'll have something to like and retweet about. So you can maintain your level of virtue, or at least the perception of virtue, for people on Twitter. Like, that's what you actually want to do. It is a fucking joke. And then also the coping and seething about the fact that, oh, this is a Chinese nationalist game. And who gives a fuck? Since when does it matter where a sale comes from? Because all these other games that you guys have been making, I would bet 100% that the majority of them have been released in China to some extent. They've had Chinese releases. What the fuck does it matter? You never complained about a Chinese sale before, but now you're complaining because a game made by Chinese developers with a Chinese mythological story made for Chinese gamers is being supported by Chinese gamers? Since when the fuck does that even matter? That doesn't matter. It is all just simple coping and seething, which is why they are going to try to tie the success of this game to the anti-woke mob. When it wasn't the anti-woke mob that made this game successful, it was gamers, and whether that's Chinese gamers, Western gamers, Eastern, it doesn't matter. Gamers said, this game looks good. I want to buy with my money. I will not wait for a sale. I'm going to buy at full price. Oh, lo and behold, developer is now successful. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.